Most Americans believe power in the United States flows from elections, laws, and elected officials. Yet over the last century, some of the most consequential decisions shaping jobs, inflation, asset prices, and even geopolitics have come from institutions most citizens never vote for. Power did not disappear, it shifted quietly, technically, and deliberately. And by the time the public noticed outcomes, the decisions were already irreversible. This story isn't about conspiracy or corruption. It's about structure, incentives, and fear. It's about how an institution designed to stabilize crises slowly gained influence far beyond its original mandate. Welcome to History of Finance Decoded. If you value historically grounded analysis over headlines, support the channel by subscribing. The story we're about to tell isn't comfortable, but it's documented. The clock starts in 1907, Wall Street, New York. A financial panic ripples through American banks after a failed speculation triggers a collapse in confidence. Depositors rush to withdraw cash. Credit freezes. There is no central authority to inject liquidity. The system survives only because private financiers, especially J.P. Morgan, coordinate emergency rescues themselves. At the time, the episode is seen as proof of American resilience. In reality, it exposes fragility. One man should never need to stabilize a national economy. But that week planted a quiet idea in Washington. Modern nations require a centralized mechanism to manage panic, before panic becomes political collapse. In 1913, the Federal Reserve Act is passed, creating a central bank with a narrow mission: supply liquidity, smooth seasonal credit, and act as lender of last resort. The motivation isn't control, it's survival. Financial panics were destabilizing commerce, threatening government credibility, and undermining global confidence in America's rising power. The Fed was designed as a hybrid: public mandate, private banking structure, political insulation. That insulation was intentional. Lawmakers believed monetary decisions were too technical and dangerous to subject to electoral politics. Stability mattered more than visibility. At the time, few imagined this technical compromise would become one of the most powerful economic institutions in modern history. Here's the uncomfortable realization. The Federal Reserve was never designed to answer to voters. It was designed to protect the system from them. Public belief held that democracy should govern economic outcomes. But in practice, the Fed's structure ensured decisions about money creation, interest rates, and credit conditions would be shielded from short-term political pressure. What people believed was accountability. What actually emerged was autonomy. And autonomy, over time, compounds, especially when crises reward those who act decisively, not transparently. Early beneficiaries were banks, industrial firms, and the Treasury itself. Access to a central liquidity backstop reduced catastrophic risk. Borrowing became smoother. Markets expanded. But others quietly absorbed the costs. Small savers saw returns fluctuate. Workers bore volatility when tightening followed booms. The system didn't fail them. It simply wasn't designed around them. Monetary stability prioritized aggregate outcomes, not individual experience. This trade-off was rarely debated publicly, but it defined who the system worked best for from the very beginning. World War I and later World War II accelerated the importance of the Fed. Financing total war required massive coordination between fiscal spending and monetary accommodation. The Fed ensured government debt could be absorbed without triggering immediate collapse. After 1945, America emerged as the global financial anchor. The dollar became the reserve currency. That elevated the Fed from a domestic stabilizer to a global signal setter. When it moved rates, capital flowed worldwide, without legislation, without treaties, quietly. Viewed differently, the Federal Reserve isn't a neutral referee, it's an engineer. It doesn't decide outcomes directly, it designs conditions. The system was never meant to be fair, it was meant to function under stress. And historically, functioning systems prioritize continuity over equality. Once you understand this, the controversy fades. and the consistency becomes clear. The Fed doesn't choose winners and losers, it chooses thresholds of stability. The rest follows mechanically. One myth persists that the Federal Reserve simply responds to inflation or employment data. History shows otherwise. Policy choices reflect risk hierarchies. Financial market stability consistently outweighs labor volatility. Liquidity crises trigger immediate response. Wage erosion does not. This isn't malice, it's design logic. Markets, once frozen, collapse faster than societies revolt. Central banks learned this lesson repeatedly from the Great Depression onward. Over decades, the consequences compound slowly. Low rates inflate asset prices. Debt becomes permanent rather than temporary. Savers earn less, asset holders gain more. These outcomes aren't announced as policy goals, but they are predictable effects. By smoothing crises repeatedly, the system unintentionally encouraged greater leverage, larger institutions, and deeper dependency on central intervention. Short-term fixes became long-term architecture. Look at today's headlines: housing affordability, market volatility, government debt. These are not new problems. They're delayed consequences of historical choices. Each intervention solved an immediate risk while quietly increasing future sensitivity. The past isn't repeating, it's unfolding. The 2008 financial crisis marked a turning point. Emergency measures, zero rates, asset purchases, balance sheet expansion prevented collapse. But when stability returned, the tools remained. Quantitative easing normalized central bank participation in markets. What began as temporary became infrastructural. The definition of normal shifted. Power migrated subtly. Governments retained fiscal authority, but monetary dominance shaped what policy was feasible. Markets began reacting more to central bank language than legislation. Confidence followed credibility, not votes. No law transferred this power. Complexity did. So today, control is distributed across central banks, bond markets, and institutional capital. The Fed doesn't command, it conditions. It sets the cost of time. That alone influences everything from housing to geopolitics. Influence without direct command is the hallmark of modern power. So here's the uncomfortable question. If democratic societies accept unelected bodies shaping economic destiny, where does accountability truly live? History offers parallels. Rome debased currency to finance empire. Britain relied on debt markets to rule globally. Different tools, same logic. Monetary mechanisms quietly extend power beyond visible governance. Reform is difficult because incentives lock in. Markets expect backstops. Governments rely on refinancing. Voters expect stability. Changing the system would impose immediate pain for long-term resilience, a trade rarely chosen. Three lessons emerge. First, monetary power grows fastest during crises. Second, insulation breeds durability. Third, systems outlast intentions. History suggests not collapse, but continuation, until stress reveals limits. No prediction is necessary. Patterns speak for themselves. Understanding this doesn't make you cynical. It makes you literate. You stop asking who's at fault and start asking how incentives align. If this deep dive sharpened how you see the financial world, subscribe to History of Finance Decoded. Every like, every share, every subscription helps us uncover more historically grounded truths about money and power.